Hello, everyone. Welcome to LOA Uncorked. This is Holly.
And this is Gina.
And Gina.
I'm excited.
We've been waiting for her for a long time.
I know. It feels like forever.
I know. It has.
Today.
It was before the time zone change.
Highly anticipated. Before the time change. Before we got messed up. Yes.
Before we got messed up. I'm so excited today that our audience gets to meet Dr. Valerie Sheppard. And let me tell you, Gina. Please. I mean, you probably know, okay, but
I know
I'm going to tell you anyway.
But you like to tell me all the things I know. Usually, this is how this works.
Keep going. I like to sneak in something you don't know.
Okay.
All right. We've got an author, a best-selling author. Let me put some, you know,
a little esteem to it.
Yes, absolutely. We've got a speaker, inspirational speaker. We've got an actor,
which I love that. You know, I love me some actors.
Comedian.
I love that even more.
Okay, listen. She's also a CEO. If that isn't enough.
Yeah, like she's it's idol. This is idol territory.
I mean, she's a corporate muckety muck. She was. I don't know what a muckety muck is.
I don't know about
my
that.
mother used to use that.
I don't think I want to be a muckety muck.
A muckety muck.
Doesn't sound
that means
good.
Executive.
Okay, sounds like you need to wear boots. You need to wear boots in the muckety muck.
I don't know. They used to call that way back when. Okay, and so she also runs a 501c3.
Nice.
Listen, okay, I'm telling you what, so she's a best-selling author of Living Happy to Be Me, Dancing with Your Soul Lifestyle. We'll have to talk about what that means.
Great title. And
she's also co-authored a book, a best-selling book, and has written some ebooks. So she's a wonderful writer, love her writing. And we welcome her here today. Welcome, Dr. Valerie Sheppard.
Hi, Valerie.
Thank you so much.
Oh, we're so thrilled, to have you.
I gotta carry you guys everywhere I go, you gals everywhere I go. That was a great intro. I'm like, yeah, that's me. Who are they talking about?
That is you.
Holly does do well with like a megaphone.
I mean,
yeah. She's a good hype person for you. Yes,
it's all true.
It is true.
You're super successful.
Absolutely. Well, welcome, Valerie. We're super excited to have our audience be introduced to you and your story and your work, and just really look forward to the conversation today. And so what we were hoping would and we start our podcast, every podcast with kind of just a little bit about you and kind of the milestones of Dr. Sheppard's life and the things that bring you to who you are today that you think would be important for the audience to know. As we kind of dive into our conversation, kind of the core tenets of who you are is kind of what we're looking for. So if you wouldn't mind sharing, that would be fantastic.
I would love to share, and thank you for asking. So my story is probably a compilation of lots of people's stories. So grew up as the daughter of a Marine. So traveled a lot, moved several times. One year, I think I went to 3 different elementary schools. That built in me this idea of resilience and kind of navigating. So getting into wherever I was and learning my way around and like doing the 3 F's that I call fitting in, finding friends, feeling safe, secure, whole. Like those are the kind of the continuation all through our lives is those 3 F's. I went to high school and undergrad in Virginia. So I'm from the East Coast. And I studied speech communications. I was acting since I was 3 years old. So that's kind of been a through line of this performance jazz that I really like. It kind of keeps me young. And it's kind of morphed through the years. And I started doing improv comedy much later in life. And I'm on leave of absence from an award-winning improv comedy troupe. But I also got a certification in laughter yoga. Part of the reason because I had a laughter yoga teacher come to a retreat that I was facilitating, and he was telling me about all the healing benefits of laughter. And so I love laughing. And so he brought it to me, and then I learned how to facilitate, and then I can take it to others. So I love that. And throughout that is an MBA at Syracuse University, and some corporate marketing jazz, and the most recent thing, a PhD in consciousness and human potential. So I would say my life has been about understanding who I am at a much higher level than I ever thought possible, actually, and leveraging that to help others get to what I call self-mastery, mastering you in your life so that you can exquisitely manage whatever your life brings your way. Sometimes those are highs and sometimes those are lows.
For sure. Wow.
I know we believe in laughter too. I mean, that's a big thing for us in our podcast, that hopefully we make people laugh sometimes.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And we're always laughing.
Good.
Well, I think, the journey should be fun and light, right? And even in the harder times, you got to find as much joy and laughter in that as possible. So it's a big deal. So, oh my gosh, I have to learn about the yoga though. Can you tell me can you talk, because I've never heard of it. So can you talk about the laughter yoga or that'd be helpful.
Oh, I love it. It is a combination of sort of improvisational movement and imagination. So triggering the inner child's play and fun, and then laughing mirthfully. So the whole idea is laughter that's not attached to an intellectual understanding. So it's not about jokes. It's just mirthful laughter. And it was created by a Bollywood actor and MD named Dr. Madan Kataria, who is from India. And he created this, Mumbai, India. He created this with some colleagues and patients about 20 years ago, because he had studied, it's called gelotology, believe it or not, the study of laughter. So have you ever seen the movie Patch Adams?
Yes.
So Patch Adams, who worked at Loma Linda, I believe, here in California, was really big into laughter as a modality. He was very funny, he did jokes at the hospital. And so Dr. Kataria was studying gelotology, and he came up with and he's also a yoga master. So how could we put yoga together with this idea of laughter? And he tried it a couple of different ways, and he came up with, they started with telling jokes, and they got rid of that because if people didn't understand the jokes, or what makes some person laugh might
sometimes it's cultural.
So he got rid of that, and then it was just he brought in his Bollywood background, which is just acting. And so imagine that you have a laughter yoga leader there. So we start with some just warming up the body and the throat. Laughter does use vocal cords. So we warm up the body and the throat. We might be making facial movements, and we're doing, stretching. So it's not like traditional yoga where there are asanas. You're not down dogging it.
Right.
You're moving in the space, but it's more like improv and fun. So a laughter yoga instruction might be, okay, we're going to do silent laughter. Everybody go. And then everybody does whatever they think silent laughter looks like. So you might have a whole
I love that.
a whole group of people going.
I could do it while doing Happy Baby, rolling around with Happy Baby.
Actually, Happy Baby is that's a nice pair to pose it with.
Yeah.
And when I first started doing it, I was doing it on the beach. So we were doing things like treasure hunt laughter, and you're supposed to be like running around the beach, interacting and having eye contact with the other people in the class, picking up things on the beach, but there's nothing. You're like, it's all improv. You're just play acting and laughing the whole time. And then you take a break, we do deep breathing, we'll do some more stretching and movement, and then we go on some more, and then we take a break. And at the end, we come into a circle, and we do a laughter meditation to close, which is usually about 5 to 10 minutes, and you're just laying on your back, laughing.
Oh my gosh.
And it's really cool because many people think that's stupid. When my students and I first started doing it, they were like, no way. Like after about 5 minutes, what are you laughing at? And I said, I don't know. You might want to do it and see. And it, like, the class is an hour long. And so people, and you're not trying to make people laugh. It just, it's organic.
Comes
and
from
that's
inside.
what's really beautiful about it. It's bubbling up from the inside like champagne bubbles. And the hardest part,
champagne bubbles, we like that.
The hardest part is at the end of class when you're trying to get everyone to quiet down, like to let the laughter go. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's contagious for sure.
So I love that. So what's interesting? Let's talk about, is it stupid? Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that, because I feel like what happens in that hour is a long time to laugh, and I want to do it. Okay, that your vibration and energy level must be
Yes.
skyrocketing. Like, in your opinion, that would be the time to do what? To manifest, to talk to your guides, because your vibration is so high that seems like an opportune moment to, and maybe it's me, I'm always wanting to capitalize on something, but my fellow corporate girls in the room, we're all corporate girls, former,
how do I get the best ROI on
recovering sabbatical, radical sabbatical, my corporate girls will understand that I'm trying to capitalize on this. Okay, but
ROI on my investment of an hour.
Return on investment for my hour of laughing. That's not enough that I just laugh for an hour. I want to do something with it. Action. So is it a time for action, Valerie?
Okay, so here's what I'm going to tell you about your need for something else to come out of this is,
oh God.
Oh, I love, give it to her, Valerie.
I got the finger. Everybody, if you're not on YouTube, she's giving me the finger.
I love Valerie.
The middle,
so
not
much.
the middle one, the pointer.
Right.
Okay,
well, not
pointer.
yet. I don't know what's coming, I'm sure. Keep going, Valerie.
it's the stop it finger. Like, what's really funny about us, especially those of us conditioned in the West, especially women who have been conditioned to sort of compete in a male dominated, out of control masculine society, that we have to constantly be getting something out of it. And the thing coming out of laughter yoga is that you're quieting all that. Like you're allowing your mental faculty and capacity for solutions of problems and figuring things out to take a break. And so the last thing you want to do when you're in this high vibration is to clutter it with ideas about getting something from it other than you already have. So the benefits of laughter yoga are inherent in doing it. Like, there are studies that have shown the increased oxygenation of the brain because you're breathing more. Laughing makes you deep breathe. You're evacuating stale energy out of your lungs. You're getting movement into your body. There have been 1 or 2 studies that show people get 6-packs abs from doing laughter yoga. Like, just the laughter itself is contracting the muscles. Haven't you laughed enough where you say, oh, my stomach hurts?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and the release of endorphins and the number of things happening already, you don't want to mess with that. Like, it's a space of healing that is perfectly divine in and of itself, and just leave it alone. Trust that all of your angels are right there applauding you for your wisdom in availing yourself of this opportunity.
That's beautiful. I should get the finger for that.
Yeah, I'm so glad she gave you.
No, you're right. I mean, like, chemically, you've done so much for your body. You're right, and I can see those angels applauding. Absolutely. Okay.
Well, and I do think the Western, the way you said it around Western masculine is so very true, and that's when it's been the way we were raised. I mean, you all the way back to the school systems, and there is a hardwiring there that is difficult to not default to, right? And so I think all of these sorts of, whether it's the laughter yoga and all these things, is how do we take the edge off ourselves to really make sure we embrace the moment and what the universe is bringing to us versus trying to force something to fall into place or to happen or what have you. So it's a beautiful reminder. I feel like we've been getting those reminders a lot, Holly. So
about letting go a little bit.
Yeah.
I will tell you this. My first real experience, deep experience of laughter yoga, I started laughing and then I cried the whole rest of the time. Like, I was sobbing. And here's why. It's the movement and the vibration. When you vibrate something, if you stuck your hand in perfectly still water, it's clear, you can see the bottom, but you put your hand in there and start vibrating it, well, the silt comes up and all of a sudden it's muddy water. Well, that's what happened. I was unlocking little pockets of pain that wanted to be released.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So the laughter yoga gave me an opportunity to just let it go. I never even spent time trying to figure out what it was. I was just great. You know how when you have a good cry and you get to the end and it's like, oh, peace. Why was I so afraid of crying? You know,
Yeah.
we get worried about whether we cry in front of people or at the wrong time, or if we have ugly cry face. It's like, who cares? You're doing yourself a service by moving energy that's not serving you, and your body, by giving you the impetus to cry, is telling you, let this stuff
Get
go.
it out. Yeah.
Let this shit out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, a fantastic reminder about even just stuck energy and making sure you make space for it to bubble up and go. Set it free.
We're conditioned to like stuff things.
Right.
Never let them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No. Listen, us competitive chicks, that's what we do. Yeah.
Never let them see you sweat. You know, you're trying to compete in the boardroom.
Dig deep, get it done. Yep.
Why did I learn to play golf? Because all the men were on the golf course, and I needed to be out there because that's where all the deals were being made. I happen to love golf, even though I can't play very well. I'm too busy watching the Hawks, and you know,
the course is lovely, isn't it?
Yes, the course is lovely. I like the cart personally. To drive the cart, that's my favorite part of the golfing experience.
No, you're right though. I don't even think about that. Like, I've never cried at work.
Oh, I have.
Never. Okay.
But normally when I'm mad, I cry when I'm mad, not when I'm sad. Frustrated.
Yeah.
Yes.
Never cried at work. Never, like I wore the red tie. I'm old. So back then, you wore a red and yellow tie with the blue suit to work. And, I never realized until recently how much of the masculine I've encountered. I mean, all of us that were successful in corporate America as females have had to use the masculine, which is important. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's an integration, I think, of the feminine, and the allowing is what you're talking of. You're speaking more towards, leaning into that. And Gina's saying we've been hit upon the head recently about doing that more because, we've been in that masculine environment for such a long time.
Yes.
Doing ROI.
It can be hard. But not impossible.
Right.
It's just a conscious choice. Like, so when I talk about self-mastery, so the self-mastery part of that would be to notice, oh, I'm doing, like you were saying when you were asking me, what should I get out of this? Oh, I'm doing that thing I do. Not that the thing I do is wrong or bad. It's just a conditioned pattern of response. And now I'm going to condition myself into a new pattern of response. So when I notice myself being too heady about things, I make a conscious choice to, okay, why don't I just enjoy right now and let go of the judgment, let go of the plus or minus, let go of the, the dynamics that might trigger me into a place that is not really serving me. I will say this, we can be conditioned to think of things as good or bad, right or wrong. Or I won't say we can, I'll say we have been conditioned to think of things that way. And it really narrows us into a very small place. The more judgments we have, the more narrow and confined is our ability to live our lives. So for me, happiness comes from freedom. What I say peace, love, joy, and freedom. I'm talking about emotional freedom, not geopolitical freedom. So the emotional freedom is to be in as many circumstances and environments as possible, have as many different kinds of people around as possible, and still feel whole and true to myself. So I can be with angry people and not take on their anger and not determine that they are bad or wrong because they're feeling anger. That's just what's going on with them. And in a situation where I'm like, I had dinner the other night with friends, Easter dinner, and we went to a restaurant and I hated it. I mean, I hated the menu. I hated the food. The service was okay. But what I anchored in on was, man, this is an answer to prayer. I am outside on a lovely evening, having a beautiful dinner with like-hearted friends, and I have the abundance to pay for it. So it was one of the most expensive dinners that I hated that I've had in a long time. The gratitude for experiencing the moment was total freedom. And I don't think anybody else knew that I hated the menu. I ordered things, I sent back something, but it didn't become the circumstantial dynamic.
Right.
It was an afterthought, and the rest of it was beautiful. So Gina, to your point, it's like, how can we do the both and? How can I be in the midst of difficult circumstances and be in my high vibration self. And I will also suggest that what I've come to understand is whenever I'm feeling anger, that's an empowered form of something deeper. So I get angry, but what I'm feeling is hurt or really deep sadness or sometimes shame. And and anger is my empowered way of saying, don't you hurt me, or my empowered way of saying, back off, Jack, or my empowered way of just standing in a difficult circumstance, say, I can do it. And when we kind of allow, very feminine principle, allow that anger to dissipate and reconnect deeply inside, we actually get to the real pocket of pain. The anger is not really the expression of the pain. That's the protection mechanism. The real pocket of pain is something that makes us more vulnerable, probably makes us feel insecure, probably makes us feel like we won't fit in, like we don't belong, like we're unlovable. That's the deeper piece. And it's when we get to the deeper piece. So many people are focused on the surface anger. It's like, oh, that's great. And there's more wanting to get your attention.
Yeah, it's like an indicator for you to like
Go
search
within.
within.
Yeah.
It's a flashing light. Danger.
Gosh.
I love that.
I haven't ever heard it described that way, Valerie. That makes complete sense. So I mean, I think, like we always should be evaluating our emotions to figure out what they're coming from somewhere, right? But when there are those strong, like I would say out of fear, protection type, anger being one of them, the fight side of the fight or flight equation, they're probably maybe even more deep rooted than, well, I don't know. I run away from stuff too. That's pretty important. So I guess they're both important, but to pay attention to those things is huge. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Very huge. I mean, and there are actually 4. So there are 4 F's: fight, flight, freeze. Like, the rabbit, you're caught in headlights, freeze. So like if you're in a meeting, for example, and someone says something and it's like threatening and you have, and I'm like, I don't know what to say to that.
Yes.
Then I get back to my office and I'm like, I should have said this and this and this and this and this. And I can't believe, but that's freeze. That's a freeze mechanism. That's a protection, do nothing. And then the last one is fawn, which people don't recognize so much. But when we fawn all over someone who's threatening to us and we, placate them and we want to make them feel better. And, we want to take care of them.
Never heard that before.
Yeah, that's fawning. Like, oh,
so making friends with the enemy or the scary person.
Exactly. What we're doing is minimizing our threat level to them so that they don't become a threat to us.
Oh, that is fascinating.
So
I've
really
never heard that.
When I see myself fawning, I'm like, oh my gosh, look what you just started doing. Why are you feeling threatened right now? Then I get to ask myself, because that's not a place of freedom. It's not a place of emotion. And I get to ask myself, what is it? I found out some really deep stuff.
So, okay. So do I fawn? Does everybody fawn? Like, I'm like,
I don't know that I've ever seen you. I think I have. Now that I think about it, for sure, I have. Yes.
Is that a way?
Is it a pleaser gene?
Yes.
Is it a pleaser gene trait?
That's what I was going to ask.
See.
Yeah, fawning has got.
We both went there.
But it's from a different place than regular people pleasing. Fawning is because a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, those are all protection mechanisms when we feel threatened. So when we feel unsafe, insecure, other word, Brene Brown's favorite word, vulnerable. When we feel vulnerable in a situation or with a certain kind of people or some interpretation or projection that we put on the situation around us can send us into that place. And it is subconscious or unconscious. So this is where self-awareness, you'd really have to be aware of what your behavior mechanisms are for when those circumstances arise, and then choose, why am I fawning right now? Okay, I think what I'll do is get quiet. And I'm fawning because I don't want that person to know that right now, I don't appreciate what's happening, or I have a difference of opinion, or I feel hurt by something they said and I don't know what to do about that. So I'm going to ignore myself and focus on them. It's just not healthy. It's not serving us. It's not right or wrong. It's just not serving the person who's doing it all the time.
Right. Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about, and we are talking about it, but let's talk about your book, Living Happily to Be Me, Happy to Be Me. And when you wrote that book, what was your goal in getting that out into the world?
Yeah.
It's a special book for sure.
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
Well, I will say that when I was writing the book, I don't think I had a purpose. I didn't sit down and say, I'm going to write a book. I'll tell you what happened. My girlfriend and I had gone out the night before, and she spent the night at my house. I had a 1-bedroom, so we both slept in my queen size bed. And so we're having tea, and I said, I'm creating in my best marketing head, Holly.
I love that.
I'm creating a marketing funnel, and I need a free giveaway. So I thought I would do 30 ways in 30 days to have more peace, love, joy, and freedom. Wow. That's what it started out, a free giveaway. So then she and I, with my phone, started just voice recording 30 ways in 30 days. And we kept going way past 30. And I started looking at it and I was like, and she said, there's more than a free giveaway here. I think you should put that on the side and work on whatever that wants to be and come up with something else. And that's what I did. And what it wanted to be, I didn't know. I just asked the book, like the work, the body of wisdom, the ideas, whatever it was, what's going on here? What's going on here? And as I kept asking that, more came through. Then it came to a point where I said, I know what's going on here. And I tell the story this way because when I started writing a book, and I encounter this with people a lot, they think there's a way to write a book. Like you write your outline, you write your chapters, and then you write all the words underneath the chapters. And maybe some people do that. That's not the way this book came through. And there were several times when I created a relationship with the book and said, now what? So when I got purposeful about it, I knew that what I was doing was transferring experience. So I was sharing my lived experience, what I thought my life would be based on following these rules that people had told me, what my life was after following those rules, and I was going, WTF?
Yeah.
Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, how did I get here? And then kind of as I went on the journey to figure it out, straighten it out, make it lovable to me, a life that I love living, I started noticing a through line. So I did a lot of seminars. I did a lot of work with a couple of different spiritual teachers for years. I did a lot of immersion into what the hell. And then I said, well, wait a second, there's a lot of things to me that feel like they're the same. And so when I started bucketing the things that were the same, that's where the steps came from. And they're sequential, and at the same time, they're spiral. So, they can all happen simultaneously in the boom. When you get really practiced at it, you can do step 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, all at the same time. So it just happened that way. And then I just listened, and I got to a point where I kind of said, are you done? Is this enough? And I felt a yes, and then I let it go.
Okay. So fantastic story. And I think it gives everyone permission to realize that the creative process is not prescribed. It's going to come the way it's going to come, and don't judge it and let it.
I needed to hear that.
Yes. Yes. And I love the way you almost spoke to your project, the way it was a entity or person, which
it has its own energy.
It does has its energy, but I don't think I don't think about it like that. I don't think I approach things like that. So that really resonated and hit home, because I think that would feel very comfortable to me. I just don't do it. Right. So I think I like that a lot. but I'm extremely curious around like the when it was said it was done, did you feel it was done, or were you really giving that much leeway to what was coming through? I'm just curious.
Girl, I thought I was done a year before the book said I was done. Like, I was done. And then every time I turned around, there was more. I mean,
Oh, wow.
and I would be like, what, I'm done. No.
But you were not the project manager of this, clearly, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like
Oh,
the
interesting.
divine energy leading us. If we will just, I call it ears not necessary listening. So listen with more than just our mental faculties or our five senses. Like, this is where intuition and the sixth sense come in, is to quiet the mighty mind. And when you ask the place within you that is your soul energy, like dancing your soul light style, when you go to that spot and say, what is it I would like to know right now? And then really just get quiet, which takes practice. I will tell, you know, it takes practice to quiet our minds, because we're rewarded for activating them, especially in the West. But when you get quiet, you get an answer. It may not be words. No, the book's not finished yet. Write 2 more chapters. Right? It didn't come like that. But what I got was a contraction feeling. So I can tell when my body's giving me a no or yes now. And there are lots of, muscle testing and ways, leaning forward or leaning backward. But my heart opens. I can feel like, it just feels just like that. Like my chest opens and I'm like, I'm done. It's done. It's complete. And then if it really wanted me to write some more and I'm saying, are we done? Like, please say yes. And it would go, I would just feel a contraction, like, okay. And then I would have to open myself back up to what more is possible, what more wants to be said. And I did have some editors, like after I made the decisions myself first, then I took the manuscript I had 2 substantive editors. And so I had 3 editors total. So one is doing the, grammar, cleaning up editing. And then I had 2 substantive editors. And so they were looking at from the spiritual alchemy in the book. Like, is there enough there for people to get the alchemy that I'm trying to activate within them?
I didn't even know there was such a thing, a spiritual alchemy editor. I love that. That's beautiful.
So they're more looking at the overall content.
Yeah. Is there
the
a
messaging
line? Does it make sense? In the 4 steps, is there enough in there for people to actually really understand what I'm suggesting that step is for, or how to do it? And so I got some masterful suggestions. And then when it all came back to me, it was beautiful, because first I asked the book, are you complete? The book said no. I had to get over that. Then I was like, okay, let me ask some learned intermediaries to like maybe help me see what I'm not seeing that the book is telling me is available to me. And then they helped me see by giving me a little, well, I don't know if I understand this, and this could be better developed. And do you have any stories over here? Then when I saw that, I talked to the book and said, okay, you're right. I got it. And then I went and wrote some more.
Wow. I love that. That is going to really be resonate with a lot of creatives and people who are have a book in themselves that or a pamphlet or whatever it is.
Right.
It really is a give and take. So remember, it helps to remember the laws of the universe, right? Just like the physical laws of the universe, like gravity and thermodynamics and that kind of thing. That we don't question. We just know they're working. There are other laws of the universe, and they are just like those laws. They work 24/7, 365, whether we believe it or not, know it or not, understand it or not. Those laws are in operation over every single thing we do, every single thing we think. So in the law of reciprocity, like, we're in a give and take with our lives. Like, there's a give and a take and a give and a take. And the book, our what we choose to wear, the party words, all of it has a cycle of reciprocity in it. And when we can be awake and aware of that, it does help to say, is this what you want? Do you really want to go? I ask my flowers when I get flowers, do you want to sit here or there? And I have an idea, I'm going to put them over here. And I would say a good 3/4 of the time, they want to go somewhere else. And when I put them there, I go, wow, this totally changes the way the room feels. But it wasn't my idea. It was divine energy coming to me through this living entity called fresh flowers.
I love that you're purposeful in all that you do. And so clearly you've had a lot of self-mastery, and you teach that in your book. What is the key? What give us an elixir, Valerie. We just want to drink it right now. I'm going to go down and ask my flowers downstairs how they're feeling. Okay. I don't do that, but I am mindful. I'm very mindful, but I can up level myself. Okay. Like after our conversation today, listen, I'm going crazy. Okay. And I'm going to be reporting it next podcast.
Yes.
What I've been doing. Okay.
But
I know,
help us
be
all.
careful, because I'm going to self-report like there's nobody's business, just like Valerie. So what is the key to starting? I mean, obviously it takes a long time, like you said, checking in with yourself. I understand what you're saying, that you gotta, that takes practice. I get that, but you got to start, and to start that. So self-mastery probably it's practice, but what is the key?
Okay, boy, there's a lot there. I love the question. So I'll say two things. So I'm a fan of really beautiful quotes, because I think they wake up in us things to remember. So I love Arthur Ashe's quote, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. So for me, that's a reminder that every place is an opportunity for me to grow in my ability to be the best version of me. I used to think I was always competing with people outside me to prove that as a Black woman, especially, I'm worthy and deserving. And, as a child of the 60s, growing up in what I experienced, my lived experience was that the world didn't really like me as a Black person the way it liked others. I was always fighting. That's where some of my fight came in, to prove I'm worthy. I'll show you how good I am. That was coming from conditioning. So when I start unleashing that, or letting that, healing that, forgiving that, it's start where I am, do what I can, use what I have. It's like, I'll just be able to go in and feel that pain, allow it, and then look for the resources around me to support me to do that. And the bigger question, and that's a little thing that gets applied in self-mastery all the time. So the bigger question of self-mastery, there are 3 pillars that I teach. One is called self-awareness. So that's being the fly on the wall in your life. It's like, not to be judge, jury, jailer, executioner. It's not to kind of crack a whip. It's to kind of open yourself. So we're in the allowing and the receiving. Oh, that's how I do that.
Right.
Interesting. Oh, that's what's going on when I do that. Interesting. It's curiosity. It's fueled. Self-awareness is fueled by curiosity, not judgment, not shame, not blame, not punishment. Just, how do I do that? I wonder what's going on with that. I wonder, why did that come out of me at that moment? That's the curiosity that delivers self-awareness. The next pillar is self-acceptance. So this is the pillar that says, everything here is very, very right. There's nothing wrong here. That I just screamed at that person, and I don't really like screaming at people. There's still nothing wrong here. I'm learning what's going on with me while I'm doing it. And I can go behind myself and clean that up as best I can. And the more I'm aware, from the curiosity of, when else do I yell at people, which is what I had to do. My staff used to say in my personal evaluations that they didn't call me a bitch, but they did say she's mean. They did feel anger and meanness. And I, of course, in my very angry face and voice would say, I'm not angry. And, it's like, I didn't know that I was. I didn't know what I was carrying. And so self-acceptance is, okay, it's okay, sweetie. It's like you talking to your 3-year-old self saying, I understand we have some hurts and some angers, and it's coming out like Pigpen, Pigpen in my book, or a representation of Pigpen. I couldn't get the Charles Schultz people to give me permission to use Pigpen. So I put a representation in there of kind of walking around with your stuff hanging out all over, which was me. So self-acceptance says, I may not have created all the things inside me that are giving me these reactions, but I'm responsible now. Like I can't blame it on anybody from when I was 10. I'm now responsible. I'm aware of it. First step. Now I'm going to make it okay, and I'm going to heal it. And that's the third pillar, which is self-love. And that's where forgiveness and self-care, self-nurturing, that's where all the really the sweetness of being in love with yourself, writing yourself a true love letter, like that's where all that comes in. And so when you put those three pillars together, you create a life, or you have the capacity to create a life that is constantly fluid and evolving. You get into a flow with your life because you're not, fight or flight or freeze or fawn in every situation. And you can kind of just like, oh, wow, look at me doing that. And when things come in, good things, bad things, ugly things, you might not even call them good, bad, or ugly. They just are. And the question is, who am I going to be relative to what is? Who am I relative to this? That's like the question I asked with my book. Okay, something's coming through me that wants to be this book. Let's ask the book what it wants to be. And, that's why the book is 4-color instead of just words, black and white words on a piece of paper. And people told me that book's going to be too expensive. And it was kind of expensive. Print. But I wanted spaciousness, and I know that colors carry energy, just like
absolutely.
Powers do. And so I wanted to activate. When I say the book is a part of my powers of spiritual alchemy, that's what it's doing. It's helping people connect with something other than their intellect.
Okay, I love that answer. I love that answer. And I'm going to wander in the wilderness here for a second, because I know I personally have experienced this, and we've interviewed people that have experienced this. So I'm one aspect. I want to go back to your personnel or your evaluations, where people said you're mean. And I want to say, for those people, like, I'll just take myself. So I'm female, and you've got female and black, and I'm at least one of those, I've experienced that. And I feel like, where is the intersection of responsibility when the culture is, you can't deny that the culture looked at Valarie and said, and help frame you being an overachiever and because I feel that just in myself, and I'm one part of what you are, right. and like, I know this gives away your power of control and self-mastery, but do you say, okay, well, the culture did this to me. How do you not become a victim of the fact of what your skin, the stereotype, your gender, your sexual preference,
the norms that society,
all that stuff
assumes, right?
Yeah. And I've struggled with that personally. And I know, like, if you're a tough woman, you're a bitch, you're mean, you're demanding, a bully, you're demanding, you're, and I'd be like, well, the men can do that, and they're great. Okay. And so what about the unfairness of life, Valarie? Okay.
Wow.
And where does that fit in self-mastery?
How do we not fall into that so we are self-mastery?
I've actually had a guest ask us about that, and I was like, whoa, like you can manifest whatever, but if you're a person of color, I think we were asked that, if you're a person of color and you're in the West, it is hard. And I'm like, hell yes, it's hard. I can't imagine, but I can't answer that question either. Okay, so I don't know. Can you? I feel like you can.
Yeah. So, here comes a lot of emotion with that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to do with that word victim.
Yeah.
And okay, so a couple things. I think in the energy of self-mastery, we are willing to take personal responsibility, not for everything that has happened, quote, to us, right? Or for us, but to how we respond to situations that come up that show that situation existed. So I do a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion facilitation right now. I just finished doing one for the United States Navy, dealing with this question of victimization of people based on race and gender and other things. And race is a really interesting one because, first of all, scientifically, race doesn't exist, but we can have that as a separate conversation.
Yep.
You know, the Human Genome Project has proven there's like 99.97% we're all the same.
Yep.
So we're all one race. Okay, so that's on the sideline. A lot of people don't have time to listen to that, so they just see what they see. So the thing about being victimized because of race, it is real. It is lived experience. I can tell a particular story in York, Pennsylvania in the late 80s. Going to visit a friend, going to a private club that she was a member of. She was taking me as her guest. We had run track together in college. She was white. I'm obviously not. And the door starts to open. It's like a little speakeasy kind of door. Like they open the little thing. They saw her, didn't see me standing beside her, close the little speakeasy thing, open the door to let her in. The guy put his arm in front of the door when he saw me and said, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Only I think he used a different expletive. And she said, "I'm a member. She's my guest." And he said, "You know, we don't let her kind in here." Okay, that's lived experience. So if somebody wants to look me in the face and say racism doesn't exist, I would ask them to make sure they're talking about people's lived experience, because in my lived experience, it is bold and it can be in my face. So that's another piece. So was I in that moment a victim of somebody's conditioning around the white supremacy versus the black skin? Yes, I was a victim. I'm not being a victim. I'm not thinking I'm a victim. I have been victimized. I think that's a very substantive thing, Holly and Gina, to have the conversation around lived experience. Because in my lived experience, I have been victimized. In your lived experience as a woman in certain environments, you have been victimized. Now, then the next thing is, do I carry the energy and identity of a victim?
So good.
Okay, so what I will tell you is that I did for a very long time. Why? Because it was subconscious and unconscious. I wasn't consciously choosing to be victim. Oh my gosh, they don't like me because I'm Black. No, I was in my anger. I was rearing up my, standing in my power to show them I am more than the color of my skin. Damn it. I want you to see my intellect. I want you to see my ability to solve problems. I want you to see my ability to get things done. I want you to see that I can power through. And I was doing that in an attempt to overcome further victimization by things I could not control, which is white people's conditioning around Black people's abilities and belonging and beauty and magnificence and collaboration. Like the conditioning in our society around this thing called the color ladder, which has been studied in sociology and psychology. And Harvard has some unconscious bias tests that you can take that show you if you have a disposition toward lighter skin. And guess what? I do, because it's conditioned into me. So as a Black female, the messages that I have gotten most of my life is that Black is not as good as white. So subconsciously, the little girl in me would start to figure out, well, how can she be accepted as more white, knowing that's not possible with this color skin? Well, I can talk the way, like articulate, I can be smart, I can show my depth, I can do things the way quote unquote white people do it, and then I'll be less victimizable because of the color of my skin and those people's predisposition toward the color of my skin.
Right.
And it has been, I got to tell you, this is very raw for me right now. You can probably feel it because most of my quote unquote awakening around this that has contributed, in my curiosity of self-mastery, started when I watched a man die in front of a camera with a policeman's knee on his neck. Like that was it for me. That was a seminal moment when I really got clear there's something going on in me relative to this. There's something definitely going on in
The
the
collective.
Oh,
Yes.
for sure.
world. But what is going on in me? Like I cried for days. Like
Mhm.
I could not mention that thing, and watching that video. And what I had to do was go find out what was in here. And I found self-loathing, like that I never wanted to, like, I think at a young age, I told God, I was angry at God for making me Black. Why? Because in the 60s, I mean, think about what was going on in the South in the 60s.
Yeah.
Right. So my little girl self was like, I don't want to be this. And it doesn't mean I don't like Blackness or Black people. I just didn't want to be one.
Right.
And so I created a life that was trying to be, and I say this with total love and self-acceptance, right?
Mhm.
Trying to be as white as I possibly could so that I could have all the things white people get. Success, property, money, prosperity, great love affairs. Like, you know, when I was growing up, I didn't see myself in beautiful movies, and nobody was showing me as a vice president or a scientist or any of that stuff. That's like 21st century stuff. That wasn't 1960s. So I hope that answers your question. It was kind of rambling.
It does, though. I mean, like it was such a profound. I mean, I was, you know, from a very, what I take away from that is, you know, we don't take on the energy of victim. Doesn't mean that you weren't a victim. Okay. And then that self-loathing part. So for me, you know, I looked at who had to be successful, and I needed to be the breadwinner. So I needed to be a man. So I needed to take on being a man. And then I think I'm going to be less victimized as a man. Okay. But you still end up with the same. Yeah. And
because you're not. And so there's
you're not. Exactly.
So people look at you and they go female, but you're showing up in
as a man.
Masculine energy. High masculine is take control, talk over people. Like there's some very specific sociological behaviors that are associated with high masculinity. They're not good or bad or right or wrong.
No.
And a woman might need them in certain circumstances. If there's a guy trying to take your purse away, you better bring your masculine energy, right? But maybe not in the boardroom. Maybe
sometimes, but maybe not all the time. But you know, it's an interesting thing. But I think the point of, and thank you so much for sharing that, Ron, is I think that that's going to help people a lot and really connect to people. So thank you so much for that. And also thank you for transcending that and saying, okay, it's not that we're not validating that these things are real and they happen. But it's how do we show up? And then for me, it's like, you know, it's going within and loving that part of me, all of me. And I think that, and I probably you felt this too, that for me, when I started bringing in my feminine into the boardroom, the whole person, there's a masculine and a feminine side of all of us, including men. They have a feminine side. When I brought that wholeness, actually, I was less victimized. And in the area that maybe I was quote unquote victimized, I was never a victim. It was showing me what wasn't working and leading me down a different path that was better for me as a light, as a human, as a whole person.
Yes. You know, the curriculum that I tested, that is the subject of my my doctoral dissertation, the courses, the foundational course is called Living 101, Being Happy and Whole. And a lot of people don't really know what the whole part means. And what I teach is that it means we are re-enfranchising all the aspects of ourselves. So the little wounded child who didn't want to be Black, I have to bring her in and say, we're safe being Black. And it's not about those other people. And I love you and I love our Blackness. Like I have to have a conversation with herself and re-enfranchise her and let her know she's precious and she's lovable and she's loved. And the people who are around us, who are in their own journey, their own dance with whatever they understand to be true. I mean, I will say that there's a lot of what I don't know that this is 100% true, but I will say my interpretation of a lot of what's going on, as divine as it is also got a lot of perpetrator victim energy on it. It feels a lot to me like there's a lot of, screaming, relationships are being dissolved. I've had some in my own life where, it's this chasm of what I believe is right. And if you don't believe it, then I'm done with you.
Right.
And I believe that's a form of self-annihilation. People don't see it yet, but because I don't believe we're here to separate ourselves into little pockets of agreement. I believe that we're here as a humanity to experience and revel in and grow from and play in everything that everybody brings. And yeah, that means learning how do we deal with people who are living outside of our humanity's laws, society's laws. How do we deal with things that are real perpetration? And then how do we deal with adjustments when things aren't working? And how do we deal with, dictatorship? And I think we have to learn from being a part of it, not learn from separating ourselves and just letting those people go over there. And I'll stay over here and not watch the news and keep myself happy. Like, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's not where I'm feeling like my solutions lie.
Well, it's interesting because the younger, I have a high schooler, she's just graduating, and she's very much, in fact, she said this last night. She said, that if people, like, she hates capitalism, we all have to be socialist. We hate anything that's Republican, like that left brain, it's, like, get out, and the cancel culture, right? Okay, because we're talking about, like, they don't believe, get rid of them, instead of teaching them, having it, let's get rid of them. Yeah. And she went to a dinner last night, and she says, I don't want Caleb to come. He's just a raving Republican. Okay. And so they went to dinner. She came home, and I said, how did dinner go? And she's like, yeah, Caleb and I hugged, and I said, I'm okay with your beliefs, and we're still friends. And they shared. So it's to what you said, that, if you divide, if she said, I'm not going to that dinner, and wouldn't have had that experience. And she said, I think he was afraid of me. She's frightening. Okay. So I would be afraid of her. It's a legit concern that poor boy.
Caleb's a smart man.
Yes. And so that fierceness, of, rights, and, that's a beautiful thing. But I'm seeing that the younger people, it's hard right now for them as well. They want that separation, and yet when they come together, you see something, completely like what you were saying. That's the vision of what we probably need to go forward. And whether that was created from our politics or, everything is divinely appointed. I believe that we're, as hard as it has been to see in the media and what's happening all over.
Yeah. I'm curious to get, and I know we're running close on time here, but I in this conversation, I'm just very curious to get your take on this, Valerie, because one of the things that I think about in terms of, self-mastery and managing, your life and kind of putting some protection around you is boundaries. And so, do you feel like some of the things we're seeing in the culture right now is just a misappropriation of boundaries? Whereas, can we take boundaries so far that we assign them so heavy-handedly that we wall off? Walls. Yeah, they become not just like a line in the sand, but rather like a wall that cordons you off in certain ways. I'm just curious. I've been thinking a lot about boundaries and how I wonder if that's a And the reason we have boundaries, whether it's fear or control or whatever those things are. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on boundaries with regard to what's going on.
I love the curiosity around this. And to me, it's a continuum, Gina. So I believe that boundaries are a part of self-loving behavior. And the way I implement them in my life is it's between me and me. So you may not know that I've got a boundary here unless I choose to tell you. And many of my boundaries, I don't choose to tell anybody. I just shift how I respond or react with what's going on based on that. If it's a real important relationship, I might say, and I use the principles of compassionate communication or nonviolent communication. I teach those and I use them. So I might say, okay, I'm feeling a little upset right now. Something that I think I heard you say triggered this thing in me, and I'm feeling upset because of blah, blah, blah. Now, sometimes people can come into that dance and dance really well. And sometimes they're just like not having it. Don't talk down to me. Don't try to psychoanalyze me. Like I've heard all kinds of stuff. And I'm just trying to be a compassionate communicator, which means I'm talking about me and I want you to talk about you. I'm not blaming. So there are ways that boundaries can be a space that gives me sort of like, oh, I know where I'm dancing and I'm playing, and this feels good for me. The way that you're talking about seeing how people have got such boundaries that they are creating their own imprisonment. So when I was up in York, Pennsylvania, before we went out to dinner that night, my friend and I were with her parents. I mean, before we went out to this club, we were having dinner with her parents. And her mother said, "Are you sure you want to take her there?" And I don't know that her mother knew it was a racial boundary that we were about to cross, but she knew something was up. And because my girlfriend didn't, obviously, she never would have walked in there like that. I mean, she was mortified. But her mother said, the only reason people like a club like this would have membership is to keep somebody out.
My gosh.
Like, do you know who they're trying to keep out? And
oh my gosh.
My girlfriend, I guess, I mean, I will never forget that question given what happened afterwards.
Right.
I don't know if she even really gave it much credence. And it was a very difficult time. Like our friendship dissolved around this, all the aftermath of what this thing was. So this boundary question, like we have to be aware that if we're trying to create a loving, harmonious society, at some point, the boundaries that we're creating with the idea, right? My mental alibi is that I'm protecting my heart. I'm, making sure I'm safe. We're actually doing something outside of us. We're actually keeping something out, which can be perfectly fine to a point. And this is where the self-mastery comes in. I need to know what I'm keeping out. And if it's something that I'm keeping it out because it brings up fear or some other kind of low vibration emotion, not bad or wrong, just low vibration. You can't attract high vibration things if you're vibrating in a low space. So I want to know if the boundary is attached to some low vibration thing. And then I've got to deal with that low vibration thing and then reassess with my curiosity. Okay, I've done some work on this. This is what I'm doing with my whole idea of, am I a racist and how? And, there was a period there where I got into some real toxic energy related to my relationship with white people. It just came up, and I don't even think it was mine. I think it was my ancestors. I really believe that I'm transmuting energy for the ancestors who had no choice, could not show anything other than, yes, massa. I know that,
I believe that
3 generations out of slavery and sharecropping and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, so boundaries can be both, is what I'm saying, Holly. They can be a prison, and we can tell ourselves all kinds of intellectual alibis for why we got to have our boundaries. And they're not my friend anymore because they overstepped my boundaries. And we can also like, what are my standards, and are my standards and my boundaries actually keeping me away from things that might actually benefit me? Like your
Right.
daughter, Holly, and her experience
Right.
of
Mhm.
the crazy Republican who's actually a good hugger and could be a good friend.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
recognizing
love
maybe
that.
he's a crazy Republican right now, and maybe he sees you as a crazy liberal right now,
Mhm.
and you're going to evolve. And
Yes.
are we willing to allow each other the space for our own growth? And inside growth are mistakes and failures and whoopsies.
Yeah.
Whoopsies.
Yeah,
Whoopsie.
lots of heartfelt honesty and sharing and listening and growing, evolving, right?
Yep.
So,
And I like that. And
mhm.
to your point about boundaries, and then there's a place where I put a, somebody just did that with me. And at this, I'm constantly in a space of my own healing can change the world. And so I'm committed, like I'm committed to transforming myself. I do teach it, but at the heart and soul of my work is me working on me.
Yeah.
And I had an interaction with someone very dear to me. Oh, the energy is settled a little bit. I'm just listening for how upset I am. Okay, it's settled a lot. That's beautiful. That's a lot of this work. And the boundary was crossed one too many times. And I got to see, wait a minute, just like we've been talking about morphing ourselves to fit into the identity of being a corporate executive as a female,
Yes.
I was morphing myself to feel safe around this person. And, because I never knew what was coming at me. I think that this person had a way of hearing things, but then bringing it up later. Have you ever had that where there's
Yes.
moment, but like a week later, all of a sudden they let loose on you, and it's like
a thing.
snap.
Yeah.
And I just decided, okay, I have been allowing my sacred space, which is my heart, to be trampled on by someone who I put in high esteem and who I love very dearly. And I have to change. I have to decide how this works best for me right now. Maybe it'll change. But right now I have cut off all contact. I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
I tell my students all the time, you don't have to kick people out of your life. If you shift your vibration away from them and you move your vibration to a higher level, if they're still down at this lower level, they're not going to gravitate to you anyway.
Yep.
Use the universal law. So you be love. If they want to be hate, those two don't come together.
Right.
So
I love, go ahead. So sorry.
No, I was just going to finish by saying, I'm still dancing with it. So I put dancing in my book's title on purpose. The book really wanted to be about lightening up, like this thing that we do to excavate the false self so that we can live more as the true self. Some people think it's a horrible exercise and they don't want to do it because they're going to open Pandora's box and they'll never recover. And so the book tries to show that, or the book was designed to show that this doesn't have to be a difficult journey. It's just a journey from you to you. And you get to decide how you live it. And the whole dance, I'm still dancing with the, wanting to be liked, wanting to be loved, wanting to be thought of well. Obviously, this person isn't thinking of me that way. And being willing to just drop just let it go. Like, I don't need to school him or educate him or, prove what I'm about. It's like, Valerie, you know what you're about. And if he can't see it, that's not necessarily a reflection on you being it. So just keep being it and allow him to be where he is. And it's a dance.
I love the dance visual and how it's not a judgmental thing. It's just a dance. It's a back and forth.
Yeah, it's like when you started the podcast with had this give and take. There's this, attract, retract. So I think of dancing very similarly.
Well, and I gasped when you said, because I thought, oh God, people need to hear this. And I was like, I was going to pause, but I loved your story, but I'm going to go back and just say what you said. Hopefully I said it in the same way, but you said that you morphed yourself into being safe around that person. And I gasped at that because I thought, oh, yeah, shit. Okay. Like
I shrunk.
I know. I was like, okay, so the fawning and I was like, I don't know, I'm not sure I do that, but I was like, oh yes. I mean, I used to say I'm a chameleon. I can fit anywhere.
Yeah.
I can change any color and I can fit anywhere. You know, like you just squeeze me.
I'll be what you
like
want
a chameleon.
me to be.
I'll be what you want me to be, Valerie. Okay. And I was like, that's my superpower. Okay.
Not necessarily.
Right. Not necessarily. There is a beauty to that in some respects, but then there's the giving yourself away and not honoring yourself.
Yep.
Yes.
Like you were
shrinking yourself,
shrinking yourself
so that they get to be important and powerful and light, and I get to feel safe in their presence. And it's like, if I have to do that in order to feel safe in someone's presence, I don't need to be in their presence. Like that's not a space that I choose.
Or I have to work hard to be seen or prove myself. Like it activates that proving yourself of worthiness, any of that, you know. And the other thing I'm going to say, if everybody that's listening to the podcast is activated now, it's Valerie did not say you need to go have big, hairy ass conversations with people and make them wrong or, you know, any of that. You just change how you show up.
Well, I mean, I'm going to maybe blow some minds in your audience, but, you know, metaphysically speaking, quantum physically speaking, there's nobody out there anyway, right? The world is a hologram of your design. So as you say, that's interesting behavior from someone I love, I choose something else. I choose this behavior, and you focus on what it is you want instead of what it is you don't want, what it is you won't put up with, what it is I will not stand for that. Like, no, it's like, oh, I won't stand for what I won't tolerate in myself anymore. Oh, here it comes. Good job, Valerie.
Yeah.
What I won't tolerate in myself anymore is shrinking myself and making myself wrong or bad and minimizing myself and shadowing myself so that someone else can build him or herself up. Like I've done that throughout my life based on my own ideas around the conditioning around race and gender. And I'm done. I've graduated to the space of, I see myself, I own myself, I love myself. And I'm growing myself into the highest potential of the consciousness that I came here to express. And ooh, that felt good.
And I love you too.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. And you know what?
I love you too.
We've talked so much today. I mean, we've used the word mastery. You've used it many times. And you know, one of the goals that we had for the podcast, Valerie, was, you know, to have these kinds of conversations with people that, you know, listeners can listen in and maybe be inspired or, you know, showcase how these metaphysical practices can manifest in their life. And, you know, all the way from the small day-to-day routines and practices to, you know, some of the bigger concepts and practices that you've talked about today. And we've talked with many amazing people. I don't think I've ever, for me personally, sitting here today, I don't think I've ever felt so inspired by the vulnerability by which a guest is modeled. What you have been learning and what you do for yourself. Like it
makes me want to cry.
Moving
really.
To watch you today. And just you take your moment, honor yourself. No, in the moment, don't run by it because we're in an interview, but you just really, that commitment level you have it is masterful. So thank you for modeling that today.
I love that. Thank you, Gina. It's exactly how I felt too.
It was incredible to watch.
So, all right. I mean, I want to take her with me wherever I go. Okay. but we can't.
Yes.
And we've taken up so much of your time, but we want to know what you're passionate about right now. Who could be your students? Could we be your students? And what you're doing right now. And we will put all the links, everybody, in the show notes. You'll have everything to get a hold of her, but
read the book.
You tell us, Valerie, how do we stalk you, without getting in trouble with the law?
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for asking. That's so generous of you. Okay. So I do a 7-day grow in self-mastery, flow into bliss challenge to have more peace, love, and joy. And I do one a month. And the URL you can go to find out more about it is tinyurl.com self-mastery challenge. It's a free challenge. There's something to do every day for people to see where are they in this idea of self-mastery. And they can get a private call with me, and if they want one, and I can help them decipher what's going on. So that's one way. Get into the challenge and kind of check yourself out. And I have a free group on Facebook called the Bliss Collective. So it's I share teachings. I do an Ask Valerie Friday. So people, if they're having trouble with stuff, they ask me stuff, and I give them guidance. And so we interact there. And then I have courses and stuff online that if people are interested in that, they can private message me, and I'm happy to talk to them. A meditation course and a 10-week real mastery course, self-mastery course.
And for businesses, you consult for a DE&I, which I think is phenomenal. Okay, so businesses out there.
That is some of my I haven't gone and gotten credentialed in this. So what I do in DE&I is I bring the work that I do on self-mastery into the conversation around racial equity and healing. And I'm really right now doing a lot of dance with the sacred Black feminine, the Black Madonnas in France and stuff like that. And yes, so I do this work with individuals, and in businesses, the shape that it takes is high performance team leadership.
Yes, that's what
having run a big team and really been driving it, but having tried to drive it, when I was the captain of a soccer team, captain of a track team, captain of a cheerleading team, like all these places where I was being a leader, I can look back and see how much of my leadership ability was driving from the negative, the false self.
Right.
And now what I do is help lead leaders by deriving from their highest self. And so, and that's really beautiful to have in a workplace, is people committed to being their highest and most magnificent self means the business is probably going to do a lot better.
Yes,
for sure. Yeah.
No, I love that. Very needed. Love that.
For sure. Well, excellent. Like we said, we'll have all the links in the show notes for folks to be able to get a hold of you. But we would like to keep you all day, but we won't. And
I would stay too.
We're glad they all hang out together.
For sure. Well, we'll definitely have to speak again.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Valerie. I mean, again, it was incredible to have you. I know our audience is going to take so much away, and we'll put everything in the show notes. And thank you for your time and generosity and all that you are, and the love that you bring into this world. So thank you
so much. Many blessings to you and your audience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.